Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Outside the Box. I'm with a friendly and familiar face in Jamie Winship. Jamie, how are you today?
Great. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy that you're here, and we've got a very important topic to talk about today. In a previous episode, which we'll link below, we talked about going into that intuitive mind, and creating, doing what we were called to do, be creators as humans.
Yeah.
And there's a vulnerability to having the faith to go run.
Yeah, that's a great way to say that. Yeah.
Like, I want to talk a little bit about it, because it's risky, because we're running a race. What if we never get there?
Right.
What if we never get to where we're wanting to go or what we had envisioned in our head? I know each and every one of us have probably experienced that in some micro version, and it probably stops us from doing it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
So can you talk to us a little bit about, okay, we're being causal, we're in the intuitive mind, we're running, how do we keep going?
Yeah. So as we talked before, so the intuitive mind is lifting us upward and outward, ascending and transcending scenarios that we find ourselves in. Not in an unreal sense, but in a real sense, like real issues, real things in our life. We're not living in a dream world, but we do dream so that we can visualize what's not yet seen. It's just common. I mean, it's just common to all invention and creation. I think we talked before about Mozart hearing a whole symphony in his mind. He can actually hear it in his mind. This is the intuitive. And then the rational is he has to go write every instrument out. And it takes him months. And he said that part's agonizing. This part's fantastic. Yeah. The hard part is like, okay, now go do it.
Yeah.
Right. And this is where we fail or die or quit or, so as a human, we'll have these ideas. And when we're young, we have them all the time.
Yep.
And then as we get into sort of the real world, as we'll call it, we start realizing, wow, I had this dream to do this thing and be this thing, and it didn't work, or it's harder than I thought, or wow, there's a lot of opposition to this, and so it can crush our dreams or throw water on the fire and all those sorts of metaphors, and so we have to have a way to work through that. Right? It's not a dream life and an imaginary life. That's why opioids are so appealing, is I can go into the intuitive and never come out. Or the metaverse, or these dangerous places where we're creating, where we can go live, where you never have to face a real conflict or a real issue, which is not human. It's very inhuman to do something like. Humans were made to dream, and as pioneers, as people causal who are causing things to happen, we go out and we encounter these things not as problems that separate us, but as creative challenges that draw us together.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the goal. But when we get out there, so then the question is, what stops that? Like, what happens when we all know this, as you're saying, we all can talk about, I tried that and it didn't work, or I believed that one time and it didn't work. So what is that? What's occurring? What's happening there? I'll tell you one result of it, because we do want to talk about this. So like if you're, especially as you're going into the new year, and whether 24 hours makes a difference doesn't matter as much as it's a symbol in our minds. I like it. I like to say, tomorrow, I'm going to start this new thing.
I love it.
Right? I think it's great. I think we ought to be doing it all the time, a lot of the times. And, if you're a student of the scriptures of the Bible, there's one of my favorite passages is when God says to Israel, consecrate yourselves or prepare yourselves, for tomorrow I'm doing a new thing. Okay. Like, that would get me going, right? and the new thing is it's completely intuitive. Like, we're going to go do this, and like, well, we've never done that before. I know. So prepare yourself that we're going to go do. And when they go to do it, it's all kinds of obstacles. And so what happens when you hit the obstacle is so like I make a resolution for the new year, and I like reading. I'm going to stop smoking. I'm going to exercise, One of my favorite ones, I talk about this every year when I'm talking about New Year's resolutions, is one year, the number 3 resolution was, I was looking at a list of which resolutions are broken fastest. You make one. So it's New Year's Eve, you're out partying and all, and you're like, tomorrow I'm going to stop drinking, I'm going to stop smoking. Which ones go away the fastest? Well, smoking, I think, was the first one forget that. I'm not going to do that. But number 3 was, I'm going to learn something new. So they make a resolution in 2023, I'm going to learn a new thing. And that's one of the ones where, for whatever reason, that doesn't happen. So that means you're making a decision. I'm going to learn something new. And then you decide, nah, I'm not going to learn anything. Right. But that's like, actually, people have made a decision. They're not going to learn anything new. And you can tell because when they encounter a new paradigm or a new situation or new information, they won't receive it. And so anyway, when you make a resolution and you go in and you get squashed for whatever reason, then what it produces in you is this a belief, and the belief is like, I'm not able to do it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's an I am statement. Wow. I don't have the strength. I don't have the willpower. I don't have the determination. And really, if you keep going down, like, really, I'm just a failure. And really, like, I really don't like myself even. So why would I put myself through this torture? And as they get this subtlety, it leads to depression. But how? Because that when a human being takes on a view of themselves that's not only false, it's actually inhuman. It's like, I'm a failure. There's no such thing as a failure. Like, that's not an identity. You can fail at things, but it doesn't make you a failure, right? They take on a quality that's inhuman, or a belief that's inhuman. It produces all kinds of anxiety in us, like, that we have to cope with. And that anxiety becomes anger. But the anger is not, so healthy anger is aimed at injustice always.
Yep.
Right? We've talked about that. So if there's no real injustice, then what do you do with that anger? You turn it inward. You're angry at yourself.
Interesting.
And when we were talking as if the intuitive mind is like a rising up, right? It's like a thought rising up in us and going out here, where we envision it and think about it as, what if this were true and real now? And then we can bring it down in the rational and do it. But as it's rising up, what things yank that thing right back down?
Failures do.
Right. Yeah. Right. And it can't, when it can't, so think of this, your spirit or your soul or your identity is always trying to ascend and transcend in all humans. And when you're talking to a person and you're doing that to them, they call it hope. Like, you're giving them hope. Hope always makes people go upward. Even though there's problems, but we have hope. And when they lose hope, it means that their sense of their intuitive mind is gone. And the only thing they can envision is, I'm a failure or disaster. So they'll stop doing this. They'll stop going up and out. And so they become trapped downward, and they become angry because it's not right. It's not right to be thinking of yourself as a failure. It's wrong. It's counter to humans. And so they become angry at themselves. And the injustice is that my identity is failure. And that's an injustice, but I can't do anything about it.
So where is the mistake made? Because to me, you're always going to have failures. Like,
right.
You're going up, it's always going to happen.
Yes.
And in my head, it's a series of going up, running into a barrier, contemplating, going up, running into a barrier, contemplating.
Exactly.
And what's happening is we get so discouraged, and maybe we even lose sight of the original, vision.
Right.
So where are we making the mistake? Is it in the stopping, or is it because the anxiety comes from stopping, right? Because you have to, it's like sitting in your stomach.
Right.
Because we're made to go that way.
Right. Yeah. Just like you're saying, it's like, and it's so interesting, because the truth of the universe is that in order to go from here to here, You have to work in this healthy, restful way. You work, it tears things down, and then it gets built up better. And then you work and it tears things down. It's like pain and failure, success. Like that's the reality of the whole thing. Unless a seed dies to itself, it cannot grow. Like there it is. So if a seed suddenly thinks, wow, once I die, I'll never return. I refuse to die. then you'll never grow. Right? So, So if I start believing that the failure part is giving me identity, then I won't do it. But if I realize the failure, the truth is I'm bringing my identity into this beautiful journey into becoming the fullness of who I am, knowing that on the way, failure is what forces the false part of me to die and allows the true part of me to continue.
How do we convince ourselves of that?
Well, one, you need community.
Yeah.
You do need community. You can't sit in a room by yourself and figure this out. You won't do it. Humans do not have the qualities to survive in isolation. We don't have it. We were made, created, evolved into living in community. And so anything that we're doing in our culture that produces separation, isolation, is causing the human to be not human, and it's producing inside of them a sense of injustice and anger, which is called depression. When I'm talking to a depressed person, I always ask them, who are you mad at? That's what I always ask. What are you angry about?
What is it normally? Is it themselves or is it actually someone else?
It's a perceived injustice, always. What's the injustice that hurt you? What is it? And then they're like, I'm not smart enough. Okay, that's not true. Do you see?
Yeah.
Like you've been smart enough. There is no injustice there. Like it's not even true. Right? So I'm a victim. I'm a victim. That's an injustice, and my anger is aimed at the injustice, but it's not there really.
Yeah.
So where's that anger going to go? In and down, right?
That's so fascinating.
So what has to happen is that false identity has to die. Where does it die? In the failure is where it can die.
So talk to me about that. Like, okay, we're ascending, we're in the intuitive, we're going up. We reach barriers, we fail at something,
right?
Whatever that is. Like, what dies there? Is it the belief that we're a failure at that moment?
Could be.
Or is it, does that vision die and we go to a new one? Like, what death is happening? Because it makes so much sense to me with the seed example.
Yeah.
You have to have that to happen.
Yeah, right. So there has to be a continual dying of the false self, continual, and it's deep, and it holds on. All the things we've learned about ourselves, the world we're in, and other people. That's not true. All of that stuff has to die, and the only way it'll die is when you hit barriers and walls and trials and tribulations. It has a chance to die. Okay, so simple example. I was teaching a university class yesterday. And we were talking about being writers, writing a play or screenplay or a book. And I was telling them that the first time I went to a writers conference, a long time ago, many years ago, 30 years ago, when I went into the conference, I had written, a little kind of a novel thing. And I went in and there were 500 people in the room and you had to pay a lot of money. It wasn't like a lame little writers conference. It was like a high dollar major publishers, but you have to pay a fortune to go. So I pay this fortune, get in there. It's in Chicago and there's 500 people was the cutoff is at 500 people in, and they paid a lot of money to be in there, and these famous publishing houses there, and the speaker stands up and he goes, I'm just going to tell you the truth right now. In this room of 500 people, 498 of you wasted your money.
Okay.
Right? I'm just telling you straight off. He goes, you're going to come up here and tell us, God gave you the book or something like that, but God's not a very good writer, that kind of thing. And it was just like this really, and that's how they all talk, like this process is hard. Very few people make it through it. Most people that do have been through a long, lit program at University of Iowa or somewhere. And you guys, most of you are just like coming in and out of, we don't know where. So in that room, something dies when he says that kind of stuff.
And rightfully so?
Yes.
Okay, so that's part of the purpose.
Right.
So something dies. Okay. Keep
So,
going.
but the question is, what dies in the room? So I'm in the room, and when he says that, and this is what happens in people, the vision dies.
My vision would be so gone.
Right?
Like, I'd be like, well, crap, I thought I had something.
Right. Yeah. And so that is like letting your spirit die. That is not what can die in the room. First of all, it can't die. Your vision can't die like that. But you can let it go. You can, how we were in the previous episode, we were talking about once the intuitive mind, you have a vision and an idea, you want to go after it.
Yeah.
Well, when you hit a wall, when you go after it, you don't want to quit. You want to start asking questions like, wow, what was that wall? The vision's wrong. No. The vision. Hold on to the vision. So what happened to me in that room was, I knew I had a choice on what needed to die in here, and I decided what needed to die was my fear of going forward.
So, okay, how did you come up with that?
Because I'm not kidding. I made a decision in that room. I said out loud, wow, there's only one other person in this room that I'm going to compete with. Do you see?
I love it.
I can decide either way.
Right.
Right? But I'm not going to let my dream die because he said that. He's correct. But why do I put myself in the 498?
Because, well, you chose to, right?
Yes.
Because, you had a choice there.
Yeah. Most of you are going to fail. I'm a failure. No one said that about you. Why did you pull that identity on? But, and if I could talk to people longer, that isn't the first day they believe they were a failure. All that's doing is verifying in their mind what they came in already believing is, this ain't going to work, but I'm going to try, but it's not going to work, but I'm going to try, but it's not going to work. That's depressing.
That's totally depressing. I'm depressed thinking about it because I'm depressed at how many times in my life, like, I've done that very thing.
Right.
So, like, how do we avoid that?
Yeah. So then again, that's kind of a barrier, and that's a chance for the false you to die.
Okay.
Not the true you. People let them true selves die in that situation. No. So then you come out and you say, wow. And this is truth telling, like, wow, that so scared me and intimidated me. I don't want to go and do the next part. The next part was going and meeting for 2 minutes with 3 different publishers and presenting your manuscript after you've heard this 45-minute talk on. Most of you aren't going to make it. So you come back, and then your question is, where did I come up with this idea that fast that I'm one of the failures? I had to learn that somewhere.
Yeah, our natural is to think, well, okay, well, shoot, I guess it's not going to work out.
Our natural is to think I can do it. That's the human true natural. The false is that I've been taught that the natural is to think that you can't do it.
Interesting. That's a learned. That's
totally learned.
Definitely learned.
I love it. I have a good friend. When someone says to him, "I'm trying to learn patience," he goes, "No, that's not true. You were born patient. You learn to be impatient."
How is that?
And that has to die.
Yeah. So this journey upwards is basically a series of dying off of these learned things that we've gotten from the world.
Yes.
That seems natural, because I think it's always, we've been taught that, only, X number of people.
That's right. Always.
Make it in whatever X thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we end up, and this is a perfect segue, because what we end up doing in most areas of our lives is we lessen the vision.
Right.
We make the vision lower.
Right.
Instead of writing the book, it's, maybe I can work at a publishing place, and, just be in the industry.
Right.
So how do you guard yourself from that? Because the natural is going to be to lower expectations, because then I won't be disappointed,
right.
And then I won't think I'm a failure.
That's right. Yeah. So again, it's and this is, so like if you make a resolution, let's say going into the new year, you want to be in a community that's going to keep challenging you on that forward. Like, community is so important, because if I get by myself, the system that we're in will shut you down. It'll just wear you out.
Yeah.
But if you stay in community, keep working on how did that make me feel to be in that room, and realizing that failure is the normal part of the process. It is the absolute normal part of the process. And the failure is an opportunity, always an opportunity to say, okay, what did I just learn from that? What did the true me learn from that? I don't get identity from the failure, but I do get insight and wisdom from it.
Yep.
Lots of it. And as you're going through it, it may be that, like, actually, I really don't, it's really not this way. It's actually this way that I really want to go. So you start out in this direction, think, boy, I really want to get there. And then as you're moving along, you realize, and the failure helps you recognize, like, actually, that's not even what I'm really, where my joy is. My joy is actually over here. And you're thankful for the failure.
And you continue to ascend.
Yes.
And then, because, as you were speaking there, in my head, I kept, going back in time, and, those feelings of, like, just beating yourself up. And I think a lot about, my tennis career. I also think about, actors and auditions.
Yes.
You just get beat down,
Yep.
beat down.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, I guess it's a built-in weeding out process, but it's just so easy to see yourself as the starving artist.
Yeah.
That I'm sure you've talked a lot about.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like, it becomes cool, It's like, oh, I'm the starving artist type,
Yeah.
and subconsciously you actually see yourself as a failure.
That's right.
And that you don't deserve.
It's a coping mechanism.
It has to be.
Yeah. Yeah. So, this is so interesting because these, as you fail, like we're working on a project right now that's not been done before, and we know it's not been done before. And so when people say, well, tell us what your goal is, like, we don't have a goal. We don't know how to name a goal yet. We're going in this direction. We don't know what that looks like exactly, but we know, we have an idea of what it should look like. And the guy leading the project, it's not me, another guy, he said, we're just going to say from the beginning, we're going to build 100 prototypes. And this is a human endeavor, 100 prototypes, knowing that most of them are not going to work.
Yeah.
But like, we will never be surprised by that. We'll never be surprised by failure.
Right. So you're almost like, you see it differently, just like we talked about in an earlier episode about who's leading the conversation, the intuitive or the rational.
Right.
In this case, you're not identifying with the failure.
Right.
The failure actually works for you.
That's right. And we're just responding to it. We're not reacting to it. We're not pulling identity from it. So as we're going forward, and these things are happening. So like in that scenario, let me just get back to that scenario for a second, just to show you the beauty of the whole thing. So I don't know how I was 35 or something when I went to that. And so the next day that you go into a main publisher, a main senior editor, very intimidating. And when you go in, they have a timer and you have 2 minutes to pitch your book to them. Well, I've never done it before. I've never pitched a book before. So I can say, well, why would I not go just try? What would keep me that I'm gonna be rejected? Well, you probably are gonna get rejected. I mean, that's kind of how this starts. But I'll get my identity from the rejection, and it's devastating, and it produces a sense of a wrong view of yourself and an injustice that can turn anger inward and downward and be depressing. Right?
It seems like it's such a fine line, and you can just feel like how easy it is to go down that.
Sure, because
road.
it's the wide road that everyone finds.
Right.
The narrow road is the one, not the one to success. The narrow road is the road that goes to the truth of who you are, and that's really what you want to find. Even beyond writing a book, really the goal is to become who you really are. And that's what the failures can help you weed out all the false things that you think it's going to be and get to the real.
So how do you do that? Because I'm seeing this as it's like a peeling the onion scenario. Okay, I learned this about myself
Yes.
here.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's the dying off process and also a revealing process
Yes.
of
Truth-telling.
going back to the to identity.
Yes.
How can we?
Mm-hmm.
Because it makes so much sense as to why we're supposed to be in the intuitive mind.
That's
because
right.
that's our path
Right.
to
Yes.
learning who we are,
Right.
our identity.
Right. And so again, just like you're saying, so the failure we see as helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes away our fear of it.
Okay.
When a person says, well, I'm afraid of failure, what they're really afraid of is the identity that will come with failure. And the fear is helpful because the fear is warning you. It's dangerous if you're going to get your identity from failure. You better be afraid of that. That's really what the fear is, and it's valuable. So if a person says to me, if I say, well, I'm not going to go present my book to an editor, why not? I don't think they're going to accept it. What if they don't? Why would you not present it? What if they don't? Well, and you're trying to get down to, because then I'll feel my identity will become the rejected one, or the you're not a good writer one. Even though I can read 1,000 books on famous writers who had Moby Dick was rejected every time they said it was a terrible, but that doesn't matter but I'm getting my identity. But if I'm in a community or I have the capacity to say, how does this make me? Why do I get identity out of this? Why wouldn't it just be a challenge just to go try?
Right.
Just enjoy the process. Go try and then learn about yourself.
For me, I think we've done a whole episode on hope, and I think part of the risk of going to the publisher, making that pitch, going after the vision, is that you fail, they don't pick you, or they don't sign your book deal or whatever. All of a sudden now hope's gone.
Right.
So hope was circumstantial.
Right. That's a great lesson though.
It's
if you can realize that. Yes.
I just know, with so many things in our lives, it could be a family thing, heading to, a family dinner or whatever, you have the hope that, everybody's going to get along. But, I can see how, we can be resistant to not fail at that.
Right.
Because then we lose hope, and then it's over.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, is it more just this continual, because hope never dies.
No. And the question is, what is my hope built on?
Okay.
And so part of failure is realizing, wow, I put my hope on the wrong thing.
Interesting.
That's not what to put your hope in. Don't put your hope in that. So I might say, okay, I'm going to go to the Christmas dinner, the Thanksgiving dinner, to the Hanukkah dinner, and I'm going to get there, and the way it's going to work, because I'm hoping in my own willpower. I'm telling you that hope is misplaced. Or my hope is that somehow over the year they've all changed. That hope's misplaced. What's your hope in? My hope is in my true identity responding out of love, joy, peace. That's my hope. So no matter what happens there, I'm going to be at peace.
You almost can't be disappointed when you're in that. Because
Right.
I do think I often feel, unsure that the vision's wrong, or I didn't interpret that right.
Yeah.
Or I'm on the wrong path, and I think, part of that, lack of faith, it's like a protective mechanism a little, because I don't have to actually see it through.
Yes.
You don't have to see.
Right. Another coping mechanism, well, it's never going to really work.
Exactly.
And so that, again, back into community, back into truth telling is tell me about your vision. Your vision may shift and adjust, but you don't want to let it go, because hope doesn't disappoint. Hope will not disappoint. But so as you're going along, so in this real scenario for me, so I go in to present to this publisher, and I walk in there, and the assistant person says, "Ready, go, do your," and I start talking. You have 2 minutes, go, and I was like, "Well, this book," and I didn't even, and it's like, bing, the time's up, and they're like, "You're out." No one said thank you. So I'm out in the hallway. I don't even know what happened. And the assistant said, "Look, if you can't say what your book's about in 2 minutes, you don't know what it's about."
Huh.
And that's humiliating. But what a good lesson.
Yeah.
So, okay, so what I have to let die is my pride. Like, all right, they don't know. They don't understand me. All this kind of, forget that. How do you go to your room and figure out how to say your book in 2 minutes? And like, okay, we died in that room. Good. Don't bring that person in there again.
Yeah.
So you have the next one going in 2 minutes, ready to go. I say it in 2 minutes. I'm all excited. I said it in 2 minutes. And they're like, yeah, we don't like that. Ding, get out. I'm like, but I had a victory. But it didn't go all the way, but it was a victory. But I had a better victory. I went and did it again. That's a big victory. That's the bigger victory. I didn't let myself pull rejection as an identity out of the first time or the second, because I did the second time better.
So how do you stay the course, and how do you know when to pivot, when to veer? It seems, the whole thing seems intuitive to me, and
it is
in the sense of like, because in my head I'm thinking, okay, well, if the time is to veer, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be excited about veering and not be like, man, I suck. I'm going to have to do this thing now.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. Joy is the answer. Joy is the answer. I was with a guy the other night, and he's going through his whole life. He's just successful sort of. And he said, how do you know like you're making the right decision? And I said, joy. When you made this decision 10 years ago, did you have joy? Not really. It was more just like I knew I needed to do it. Like that's the wrong way to think. That's purely rational. Like what is your identity trying to become? What's your gift to the world? Right? Like that. And so when I come out of that session, it's like, okay, I did it in 2 minutes. Now I'm like, I want to do this. Like I want to do this. I'm not trying to write a book now. I'm just trying to like successfully do this one thing. Like this is the challenge. And so I go into the third one, and he listens and he goes, okay. He goes, let me see your first 3 chapters. I give it to him. He goes, we'll get in touch with you. And so I leave. I get, this guy, I still have it. He sends me a handwritten note, and he says to me, this is 35 years ago. He says, you're a good writer, but you're too dark for people that are lighthearted, and you're too lighthearted for people that are dark. So when you write, you need to know who you are when you write, and you don't. So, like, now I know people that would take that and never do it again, but he's challenging me. He's critiquing me, but you're a good writer. Like I see, that was all I saw.
Did you focus on you're a good writer?
Yes. Because I have the choice.
Yeah. I would have been like, well, I don't know who I am.
Right.
How did you use that you're a good writer on the pathway to finding out who you were?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so it was a rejection.
Yeah.
I didn't get it. But I can create from that. Like I can go forward. Am I light? Am I dark? Like what? I don't know. And so that helped me pursue my own identity, which was the key to the win in that whole thing. Figure out who you are and then write from that. That's what he was saying. But on a little card, but he took the time to all these things in my mind were like, what's good here? Not like, I'm never going to get, how do I figure? And so 35 years go by, and I spend a lot of my life figuring out identity, which has been one of the greatest blessings of my professional and personal life.
No, that's
is
incredible.
The search for identity.
Yeah.
Because was it right to go sell a book? Yes. Did you sell a book? No. I got something way more than that, but I wouldn't have known what was beyond that if I hadn't just aimed at that. Right? Because how can my intuitive mind see the search for identity? It was like this part of me, like, write a book, go to this thing. And so then all these years later, I'm talking about identity, and then I'm in Seattle 35 years later, and my phone rings, and I answer the phone, and it's this publishing company. It's this same company.
35 years
later. And they go, hey, our CFO is just doing this little thing you did on identity and wants to know if you've ever written a book. And this is the senior editor of Baker. And she says, the CFO never calls me about anything. This is really weird. But he said, just find your number and call you. Have you ever written a book? And so the very same publishing company that all those years said, go find yourself, they're the ones that published my book.
That's incredible.
But what if I said, I'm not going to do it? I'll never get it.
What if
right?
you said, well, I guess I'm not a writer. I guess I'm not going to write a book.
Right.
But I love this idea of how the vision, the purpose of the vision isn't only to like see it through.
That's right.
The purpose of the vision is, again, it's cliche to say it's about the journey, but you know what I mean?
It's absolutely, that is.
But like, I think this makes that statement like reality.
Right.
And this is how it's about the journey.
That's right.
Because each step along the way, you're figuring out more about yourself and learning who you are.
That's right.
And I'm in my head, I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do we do this, Ben? And and you can correct me, it's the dying off of the false self on the way, and seeing failure as learning opportunities, and inside and out, craft and with who I am.
Yep.
What am I missing? How do I keep the momentum going?
Community. Stay in a community that's doing the same thing with you. Not the same vocation, but the same journey. Mm. They can be going in a million different ways, but they're committed to the same. What Kierkegaard said, with God's help, I'm becoming who I am. Mm. That's what we're doing. We're becoming who we really are. In becoming that, all kinds of fruit comes out of it. Books, business ideas, stuff you never even thought of, because the journey's not for the business. The journey is for the identity.
I love it.
Right?
I love it. Yeah.
And it's simple, and keep it simple, and don't get all distracted by everything the world's saying about you're only known by what you produce, and just don't push the river, flow with the river, but be ready when that river floats you right into the opportunity. Be ready for it. Be prepared for that opportunity.
And that's the run part.
And when it comes, when that editor calls you, guys, have you ever written anything? I'm like, yes. You bet I have. I'm like, Donna's like, have you? and then I went, and then when I submitted a manuscript finally to them to go into the editing process with those 3 editors, was the most I mean, I've been in terrifying situations. This is the most intimidating thing I've ever done, was having 3 editors rip my manuscript to pieces over 2 years. And I was so intimidated. I wouldn't even go in my office. I was so intimidated by their critique. And this is the part that had to die, this fear. Why are you afraid? And I would actually envision the editor, the main one, God bless her, Vicky, as I've never even met her. I still haven't. I've talked to her a million times on the phone, but I've never met her. And I would lay in bed picturing her as this mean person that's just thinking of ways to ruin my future. Because, you keep critiquing my book, and I'm trying to get this thing due to publication, and you keep pushing it back and saying, we need this different, and what about this? And she was my best friend, And the only way I overcame that fear, I mean, I would stand at my office door and not want to go in. That's how intimidating it was. And physically intimidating. And the whole process is die to this ego, this fear. You have a wrong view of them. It's not true. And so one day I was in Seattle, and I was working out, and I was running up these hills, and this idea came to my mind in the intuitive. And the question was, what's better for you, the hills or the flat road? And I'm like, the hills. Yeah, but you hate the hills. Yeah, but they're good for me. And so really, you need to love the hills, right? Yeah, love the hills. And then it was like, that editor is a hill. Love her. Ooh. Because she is the one that will make you fit. And it just changed. Like, that's right. And when I went to read the finished manuscript, when she was done the editing, it was beautiful. And she's like my favorite person now. But that's all of that has to die for the thing to grow. And so it becomes not like, oh gosh, I'm going to get critiqued again, but just go through it. Let them help you. The universe is not against you. It's for you. Stop saying that. but I had a community saying, you need to do this. Come on. And then my wife would go in there and actually read the critique and go, it's not that bad. She's like toning it down because to her, she didn't see any problem with it at all. That's just but it's so personal to me, like that. And so community, and then, looking at each challenge is like, I'm not going to turn this thing inward and get false identity and go down into depression, which pulls me way out of the intuitive. I'm going to go into it. I'm going to let the weight fall off of me that allows me to go up and further out. And sometimes that current will take me way to another direction, but it's okay. Because now that I'm up here, I'm like, it's not really that. It's actually this.
Yeah. I love that because, often, and we're going to close up here in a second, I will, I'll kind of get down on this idea that I don't know who I am yet. So I feel like I have to figure out who I am in order to do all these things. And, what you're saying is that you're becoming the whole way.
All the way.
And that's the point. Like, you don't have to, you need these things.
Yes.
You need
the failure.
That process. Yes. Uh-huh. It's funny how we can confuse and get them flipped.
That's right.
I've always thought that, if you don't know who you are, it's an insult.
Right.
I want to be the guy who knows who he is.
Mm-hmm.
And, the truth of the matter is we're continually learning and we're becoming the whole way.
Eternal journey. Knowing who you are is an eternal journey.
It's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Jamie, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
This is incredible.
We're going to have a great new year.
Guys, I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful new year. Let us know what you think in the comments, what your visions are, what you're not afraid of. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us. Jamie, as always, I appreciate you being with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Coming on again?
Yeah, I want to come on and hear how the year's going.
There we go. Love you guys. Thank you so much for being with us. It's been Outside the Box with Jamie Winship, Living Fearless. We'll put the description to that down below, or the link to that down below. Thank you for hanging out.
Don't go away.